This is part 2 of a multi-part training series introducing Medialon Manager. It is highly suggested to complete part 1 before beginning part 2. In this section, we will be covering MXMs, variables, and list objects as well as task control commands. Now we will program our first show component for video playback. MXMs, or Medialon X Object Modules, are the device drivers or plugins that allow Manager to communicate with and control a wide variety of entertainment production devices and software. If there is no pre-built MXM available to control the device, use the Medialon low-level communicator to input the device manufacturer's protocol for a custom plugin. If you are skilled in C++, you can use the Medialon MXM SDK to create your own custom MXMs. Contact your Medialon dealer for more information. Right-click on the Devices node in the Browser tab and select New Device. The first device to create will be the Medialon Local Media Player, which I will name LMP. After clicking OK to create the device, the MXM setup screen will open. You do not have to complete most setups to create the devices. Click on the Select button and then click on the space in your screen, then click on another space down and to the right of the initial click. This will set the video player's size for testing. Change the window style to movable and sizable, and check the box for Window Always on Top. Click OK to finish the setup. With the device selected in the browser window, you can see the list of commands in the lister window. Click the plus next to the LMP node in the browser window and select variables to see the variables created for this device. There are 3 categories of variables: System, Screen, and User. System variables are created by Manager devices and tasks. These variables cannot be changed through direct programming as they are primarily feedback related. Screen variables are part of user screen objects and can be updated through direct interaction or through programming. User variables are created by the programmer as needed. The 6 types of variables are integer or whole number, real or decimal, string, time, date, and enum. Enum type variables are 2 parts, one sequential numerical part and a text part. Either part can be used in programming. For enum type variables, like the lmp.status variable, you can see the different statuses available by selecting that variable while in stop mode. Then, in the Properties window, click on the down arrow for the current value and a list will appear showing all available statuses. This information can be used to match an LED status's color to the status of the variable. Go to page 3 of the user screen and update the color so it is different from the first 2 pages. At this point, we will need a way to navigate to the different pages. Go to page 1 of the user screen and create 3 buttons, labeling them BT Page Main, Test, Video. For each button, find the property Go To Page and set each to the appropriate page. Instead of recreating these buttons for each page, use a property for each user screen page called background page. This allows the objects from the specified page to appear on any other page in that user screen. Go to page 2 and set the background page property to 1, and do the same for page 3. Programming in Medialon requires a logical step-by-step thought process when controlling devices. For example, to play a piece of media in the local media player, simply telling it to play doesn't work. First, the media must be chosen, then opened, and then once the media player is ready, it can play. First, create a button to open the media. Then click and drag the Open Media command from the local media player and drop it on the button. Next, with the new command in the task still selected, go to the Properties window and for the Media Name property, click on the magic wand icon. When the Windows Explorer window opens, open the User Data folder and select a piece of media. For this example, I have chosen bbb.wmv. The command in the task should now contain the file path for the piece of media. Now, create 3 more buttons for play, pause, and close media, naming each. Drag and drop the appropriate command onto each button. Now that the basic controls have been created, let's create volume control and some monitoring objects. There are 2 slider creation tools available in the panel toolbar, a standard slider and a digital slider. They have a default range of 0 to 100, but can be adjusted in the properties to match what is required. The standard slider has a handle image that can be changed in the preferences, while the digital slider has no handle. Select the slider icon in the user screen toolbar and create a slider and label it LMP volume. Drag and drop the set volume command from the local media player and drop it on the slider. The default value for the set volume command is 0. If you look at the volume property for the set volume command, you can see it specifies a range of -100 to 0. This makes the default set volume command set full volume. To use a slider status as the value for the set volume command, first, match the slider range with the set volume command range. Select the slider and match the maximum and minimum values of the slider with the set volume command range, which is maximum 0 and minimum -100. Next, select the set volume command in the task that was created and go to the Properties window. To greatly reduce the number of tasks and queues in a project, you can set variables as parameters. This allows a queue to be sent with the most current variable value instead of the need to create a unique task or command for each variable option. To have a command property reference a specific variable, click on the arrow button to the right of that property to open a variable selection window. This window will show every variable in the project, allowing you to select the desired one. Note the slight change in visual formatting for that property, signifying a reference variable instead of a hard-coded value. To remove a reference variable, click the arrow and select the top item in the list, literal value. On the volume property, click on the arrow on the right side to open the variable selection window. Find the volume slider .status variable and click OK. You can start typing the name in the search bar to reduce the amount of visible variables. Select the display icon in the panel toolbar and create and name a display to show the current volume. Drag and drop the local media player volume variable into the display you have created. Create and name a display for local media player status. Drag and drop the lmp.status variable into the display. Create and name an LED for the LMP status. Drag and drop the same LMP status variable into the LED. The status variable is an enum, which consists of a numerical and text side. This shows the LED only uses the numerical side and the text display only uses the text side. Create and name a display for local media player timecode. Drag and drop the lmp.timecode variable into the display. Note this task is triggered every time the lmp.timecode variable changes. Create and name a display for time remaining. Notice there is no LMP variable for time remaining, so this must be created using the available variables. Double-click on the time remaining display that was created so the variables are showing in the lister. Drag the time remaining.text variable into the task that was created to fill the timecode display. Select the LMP variables so they are visible in the lister window. The time variables that are available are timecode and duration. Variable math can be used to subtract the timecode from the duration to get the time remaining result. Double-click on the new command in the task to open the edit expression window. Remove the double quotes as they are unnecessary for this command. Using the variable selection tool, build the rest of the equation. Go into debug mode to test what you have built. Feel free to use the web panel open in the browser to test. If anything does not work, review the video to verify the steps. Part of building a system is learning how the devices that are being controlled react to the commands sent. When the local media player device opens a new piece of media, the volume is automatically reset to full. In this project, when media is loaded, the volume should return to the last known value. Because of this, instead of the volume slider directly sending a set volume command, we will create a user variable to hold the latest known volume change, and a change in the user variable will trigger the set volume command. User variables can be created as the programmer requires a placeholder for various information, including scheduled time events and dates, results of other equations, and file paths. Each type of user variable has its own group of properties that can be adjusted to the programmer's needs. For instance, setting a specific range of allowed values, as with the integer or real numbers, specifying units of time, or manually creating an enum list. So now, we will create a user variable by right-clicking on the user variable node in the browser window. This will be called current volume, and it will be an integer type. Right-click on the current volume user variable and create a task started on this variable's change. Click and drag the set volume command from the local media player device and drop it into this new task. In the Properties window, find the volume property and click on the arrow on the right side to open the variable selection tool. Select the current volume variable and click OK. Right-click on the volume slider to open the associated task. While in the list view of a task, you can see the column of LEDs and lightning bolts. The LEDs are to activate and deactivate individual commands. The lightning bolts can trigger a single command in a task. These controls are primarily used for testing. Disable the existing command. Select the user variable node in the browser window, then click and drag the current volume variable into the slider volume task. Double-click on the new command in the task to open the Edit Expression window. Remove the double quotes and click on the var button to select the slider status variable and click OK to confirm. Create and name a new button for mute and make the mode property toggle. Instead of adding text labels, add mute images for the bitmap off and bitmap on properties by clicking on the magic wand icon to the right of the property line. Feel free to use the included images or your own custom images. Set bitmap off as the unmuted icon and bitmap on as the muted icon. Drag and drop the if-else endif manager command onto the mute button. Double-click on the if line to open Edit Expression window. Set the equation to be the mute button status is compared to 1. Click and drag the set volume command from the LMP device and drop it on the else and set the volume property to -100. Duplicate the set volume command and drag the copy onto the end if. Set the volume property to reference the current volume user variable. Now that we have the basic controls sorted, let's add some flexibility to what is played. Let's build a mechanism to choose any piece of media and begin to play automatically with the volume automatically set. First, select the list icon from the panel's toolbar and create and name the list for Media Files. The files management device is used to copy, move, or erase files on a computer. It can create, read, and write to files like any files. The files management device can also monitor specific folders for any changes and trigger tasks based on those changes. The list is a user screen object that allows the user to select an item from a group. The list can be populated manually by clicking the wand icon to the right of the text items property. Please note, if the list is populated manually, the list.text variable may need the property box for persistent checked. More on persistent variables in a moment. The list can also be populated while the project is running using the manager command list control as well as other commands. We will need to set the file location that we want to monitor. Create a files management device. Create a string type user variable for the user data folder. Create a task that will preset the system when the program starts to run. Add a start condition to trigger the task when manager.currentStatus changes or $sign. We will be adding commands to this task throughout the training. Drag the user data folder user variable into the new startup task. To build the file path, we will need to use a combination of system variables and strings. The files management variable projects directory gives us most of the file path, while the manager variable gives us the title of the project, which is current project title. Double-click on the new command in the task to open the edit expression window. Remove the double quotes as they will not be necessary. Add the files management variable project directory. Add the character / between quotes to make sure proper file path formatting is continued. Next, add the manager variable current project title. And finally, add the string .userdata and press OK. Once this is set up, we can use the user data folder variable in other commands instead of recreating this path manually. To have the files management device focus on the correct folder, add the set current directory command to this task and have the path property reference the user data folder variable. Now the files management device can use the getFilesList command to populate the media list. Since we only want the video files listed, in the filter property specify *.wmv. Set the return list property to reference the medialist.text variable. Double-click on the media list to see the variables in the lister window and drag the .status variable into the startup task. Replace the double quotes with 0. Because the Open Media command uses a full file path for media selection, we will need to build the media file path. Create a string type user variable for selected media. select the media list and right-click to create a step-based task. Drag the selected media user variable into the new task. Double-click on the new command to remove the double quotes. Add the user data folder user variable, then the / character in quotes, and finally the media list variable .selected text, and press OK. This will automatically create the full file path for any media selected in the list. With the prep work done, let's make a button to load and play selected media after checking that something has been selected. Create a button to play the selected media and set the mode as one time. Right-click on the button to create a new step-based task. Double-click on the Place Selected button so the variables show in the lister window. Drag the .status variable into the task. Double-click to open the editor and replace the double quotes with 0. This will reset the button to a 0 status once the task completes. In the label property of this command, add end so we can use it later. Use the manager command if, else, and if to check that there is a selected item in the list. As noted earlier, the list items begin at 0, and if nothing is selected, the list is at -1. Double-click on the if line to compare the media list.current status is greater than 0. Drag and drop a LMP open media command on the else and have the property reference the media selected variable. Wait for is a logic command in the manager device that allows the task to pause until a specific condition is met. Once that condition is met, the task continues. If the condition is not met within a certain timeout period, the task will jump to a specific command. Click and drag the manager command wait for on the else line so it is below the open media command. Select the LMP variables folder and click on the .status variable. In the Properties window on the current value line, use the drop-down menu to select Ready. Note the value in parentheses in the lister window for the status Ready. Double-click on the Wait For command to open up the Edit Expression window. Specify a comparison that the LMP.status variable is 2. In the Wait For properties, specify a 2-second timeout. In the On Timeout Go To Label property, click the magic wand. This will open a selection window that will contain all labels created in this task. Select the End label. Next, let's trigger the task to set the volume. Start Task and Call Task are both manager commands that control the activity of tasks. The Start Task command will trigger a specific task and then immediately continue to the next queue. It is available for use in both time-based and step-based tasks. Call Task will trigger a specific task, then pause the initial task. Once the secondary task is complete, the initial task will continue. Call task is only available for step-based tasks. Click and drag a manager command call task on the else line. In the task name property, click the magic wand icon, select task, and choose the current volume handler task. Now add an LMP play command after the call task. The task will work fine now, but if you want to add an additional precaution, let's add a step to select something if nothing was selected from the list. Select the Open Media line and add a label in the properties. Double-click on the media list so the variables show in the lister window. Drag the .status variable and drop it on the endIf. Double-click to open the Edit Expression window and replace the double quotes with 0. Go to Label, Go to Time, and Go to Line are all commands that allow you to jump around within a task or into another task. Go to Line is only available for step-based tasks. Go to Time for time-based tasks, and Go to Label for both step and time-based tasks. Labels can be added to any command in the Properties window. Drag a manager command Go to Label and drop it on the endIf. In the Properties for QLabel, select the wand and choose the label you set for the Open Media command. Finally, before running a test, let's make a video play in user screen instead of a random place on the screen. In the Panels tab on the right side of the toolbar, click on the drop-down menu for Current Panel and select Local Panel. Right-click anywhere in the open space and create a new user screen. The container object is only available for local panels and is the only user screen object without variables. Containers hold various device interfaces like control panels, a web browser, spreadsheets, and video playback, among other things. Select the container icon from the Panels toolbar and create a large container object. Drag the LMP device from the browser window and drop it into the container object. Check your work in debug mode using a web browser for accessing the web panel. The flow should be, when you go into debug mode, the user variables populate with file paths and the media list populates with the media file names. You may notice that when media is selected in the list, it is no longer readable. To fix this, return to stop mode and select the main control panel in the current panel drop-down list. Select the media list and find the text color and item color properties and adjust to your preference. Make sure to save your work. In the next section, we will be covering MRCs, basic DMX control, and .ini files.